Hello, and welcome to the Other Minds podcast. I'm Joseph Bohigian. Other Minds, founded in 1993 in San Francisco by Charles Amerkanian and Jim Newman, is devoted to championing the most original voices in new and experimental music. On Season 3 of the podcast, we're talking with a range of composers, performers, and authors across the field of new music, including the featured composers from the 28th Other Minds Festival, which will take place September 25th to 28th, 2024 at the Brava Theater in San Francisco. Today I'm joined by Marshall Trammell and Hafez Modirzadeh. Marshall Trammell is an experimental archivist, percussionist, conductor, and composer. His aesthetics and activism are centered on social change interventions using political aesthetic theory, data creation, mapping, and collective music and art making in order to relocate the act of co-production from traditional cultural institutions into communities. Hafez Modirzadeh is a saxophonist, composer, and theorist whose music and research focuses on cross-cultural approaches. His research has been published in journals including Music in China, Black Music Research, Leonardo, and Critical Studies in Improvisation. Trammell and Modirzadeh will perform on the final night of Other Minds Festival 28 on Saturday, September 28th, 2024. To start off, could the two of you talk about your collaborations together? Let's start with Marshall and then Hafez.
He's been a great person to work with. I met him as a San Francisco State student in the 1990s, like 98, and I joined his ethnomusicology class and then performance class. He had just come from Wesleyan, getting his doctorate in ethnomusicology, and he was teaching his chromodal discourse, basically his thesis. So it was a important awakening to really see the education process. I've been dropping in and out of San Francisco State since '93. I was part of like different squatting organizations, anti-homelessness organizations and campaigns, and also just ad hoc groups like the Coalition on Homelessness, or like Homes on Jails, where we take over squats and food not bombs, where we're serving food, people. So, we'd cook it at my house in the Mission. So I was in and out of school, and then I got back in '98, and I met Hafez. Actually, the like a critical music enlightenment event happened actually through his class, and then in 1999, attending the Improvising Across Borders conference that was organized by Dana Reason at UCSD. I got to hang out with George. Vijay Iyer did a paper on like the embodied cognition of monks playing. So there's this whole like weekend of creative improvised music studies discourse, and so Hafez gave his paper. That's a whole other story, but I came back from that trip to San Francisco State, and then I had my first creative music architecture for my own like theory. It's called the multi-aesthetic theory of improvisation. So I was like able to like think, during this conference, and then put into motion like the first articulated music system that was like looking at critical theory and like literature in different languages, and like oppositional consciousness development and embodied cognitive theory, and Buddhist principles and Egyptian principles, and kind of like trying to figure it all out. I ended up leaving the school because I ended up going to New College for a year, where I just did like a weekend BA program, just meeting a advisor once a month. It was more like a grad school. So I feel like relationships to like social of people, social conditions, and the outlet of experimental music sort of forced me to outgrow the confines of like San Francisco State, or at least my ability to navigate it, because I've worked against it, I guess. But I did like the more open form of inquiry that was really ignited by Hafez and Francis Wong, for sure.
I had a new music ensemble, which was that's what was on the books, and it was a small combo that allowed us to do things that coming out of the jazz source. I had an ensemble like that, and Marshall showed up. So he played as a student in that ensemble, but it's a learning community, so we were all students in the sense of like where it was going to take us. So that was in the late 90s, and then I met him then, and that was a long time ago, right? 7 years ago. And then we've just been in touch ever since. And I'm trying to think of when we actually played together. We haven't played often enough together, but he would come back and be a guest speaker in my classes on music theory or improvisation or other, and he would give wonderful presentations on his music research strategies. And where we really connected there was with the commitment to education by any means necessary. When I heard Malcolm X on film, I was at UCLA as a grad student at the time, years before that, and the Black Student Union there was showing a 16 millimeter film, just Malcolm X speeches, and I heard that, and then I understood from an educational point of view, we must, from the moment we enter this world, research strategies are going on. We are reaching out for a hand to get a sense of where we are and where we're going. So in music research strategies could be on the street, could be at a university, and I hope that Marshall, because he is being he's being invited by these institutions of higher education to continue his work there, and I hope he picks up on that, because research strategies are all around us all the time, musical and extra musical, and I've always just recognized it. So it could be like I said, it could be when I was playing in a circus or a cruise ship or a bar mitzvahs, weddings, inside, outside concert halls, on the street, with all sorts of folks, So that takes strategy. So when Other Minds called Marshall and he accepted the research strategies, they just, they get going through that filter, right? So there's an opportunity.
Let's listen to a performance by Hafez Modirzadeh, David Boyce, and Marshall Trammell at Bird and Beckett in San Francisco. Marshall, tell us about your music research strategies, which you describe as a performing political educational platform for embodied social justice vernacular, organizational strategy, and alternative infrastructure development.
Well, yeah, actually, Francis went back to school to get a teaching degree, right? He's teaching at ethnic studies, and he had his curriculum online, so I would copy his curriculum. But I was already doing this third world feminist oppositional consciousness based practice coming out of from 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 Sheila Sandoval, third world feminist studies scholar at UCSB, a research institute, doing amazing work on biosemiotics now. But her seminal work on the methodologies of the oppressed was an important book shown to me by my then roommate, Diana Wu. So music research strategies is kind of a way for me to pay homage to the research of Sun Ra, like his you know his research, his scholarly in investigations, beyond what we hear in his records, right? Or what, if they can say that, but the fact that he was an orator, the fact that he was a biblical and Egyptian scholar, really framed how I, think of him, and I think about the kind of principles of at work when we are engaged in inquiry and creative practice. I had to put that in there. So I need to have like a body that actually was related to Anthony Braxton's formations, right? Because he had these engineering uses these this language which is mobile. There's different systems you can move around. So I was able to I needed a platform to build a forge to address the political education frameworks for curriculum, like the music of embodying social change practices into the workers who go out and door knock, and then the creative music practices of liberation, I guess you might say, on the stage, or inquiry. I have to say that. That's the lesson they told us, right? To get organized. So we listened to Kwame Ture, Sophie Carmichael's organize ourselves. So that relationship to ACM and these composers.
Could you talk about your insurgent learning workshops as well? I was curious about those.
Oh, so that is a relationship to the Zapatista struggle directly. Manolo Callahan is a investigator from the Zapatista movements in the U.S., and he created the Center for Convivial Research and Autonomy, and his amazing frameworks around insurgent learning, which is the facilitation of skills in political education struggles that I've experienced in Chiapas when I was down there on a people of color delegation at the beginning of the other campaign, 2004-2005. And so what we experienced during that time, it was what I was doing down there. I was in grad school in New York, and I was there with folks of color learning about the struggle. And so the Zapatista uprising. And then our task was to come back to the States and do a presentation on that. So I was part of that organization. I think I tried to found a version of that in Oakland at the time. And then I found Manolo Callahan's his curriculum. He teaches in California, and so I studied what he wrote, and so it was like referencing anarchists, Zapatista scholarship and discourse and fucking mystery and all that good stuff that I've been following since '94. So insurgent learning. So in the study of that, I was able to make this relationship to the tactical media of the Underground Railroad quilt block codes, and creating a platform to address the formations of resistance to white supremacy for today. And I was able to really, like think through ways in which I can use a political education style framework rather than teaching in a classroom. Like I'm not good at teaching in a classroom, but I'm better with like a pointed workshop. And so I created the workshop so that I could create a tactical media, like a physical tactical media lab, which I did experience at Westminster Polytechnic Institute in Troy, in Troy, New York, where we would engage in a practice with dependent like in what I call a practice of anti-disciplinarity, right? Like this in our tactical media lab, we're trying to solve a political issue, actually physically making something, and we may have engineering students or like biochem students, and so we'd all be these independent of and despite of our disciplines, or in spite of them, we would make something that was anti-discipline. It was of no discipline. It wasn't trans. It was something new. So in the formation of art in my insurgent learning workshops, we are like cross-breeding, cross-fertilizing, cross-pollinating these natural activities of growth that can be embodied into a differential movement for democratic space, right? How we defend like a democratic space.
Hafez, would you talk about your cross-cultural approach in your music, combining elements of American jazz and Iranian traditions?
Here's an example, Joey. You're of Armenian lineage, meaning blood lineage. And I'm saying that specifically because there's also blood heritage. You see, and so, for example, my blood lineage is very mixed, but the strongest partial of that overtone is coming from Iran, right? My father's from Iran. My spouse, my lifelong collaborator is from Iran, and so forth. So I married back into that, and that's you could say a lineage from my ancestry. So I'm pointing something out here because then there's heritage. Now this is what I've come to define for the purposes of understanding that the musical inspiration, the inspiration to play this music, to follow this path on the saxophone is African American. Okay, that's a heritage. That's not in my blood lineage, but that's a blood heritage. Now, there are people who confuse the two as one, and you can have a lineage of ancestry coming from one part of the world or one particular, area and experience, but your heritage, I'm speaking in musical terms or in artistic too, can come from relatives, everywhere, right? I mean, so for me, the African experience in America, Black America, is what brought me into a sense of my own humanity through the music. And I'm saying that specifically when I say Black America, because otherwise, jazz, because I'm talking about jazz, right? All of that stuff kind of gets pushed aside, human experience and ancestral that raises a certain sonic expression that then gets ignored, especially in academic ways, and I want to bring that back. I want to say there's blood lineage, so I have an Iranian heritage. I also have European and others, but the heritage, being born in this country. So this is so to push aside any assumptions. Being born in Durham, North Carolina, 1962, and then by 1976, hearing Charlie Parker, Sonny Rollins, Dexter Gordon, all this, boom, John Coltrane. That heritage, even though I wasn't born out of that experience, but that becomes, my heritage. Then that can lead to the blood spirit. This is concepts of blood. Blood spirit is something that then goes beyond all our categories, all these categories that we have to define ourselves by, and that goes beyond human too. That goes beyond our own human inventions. That goes into sonic indigeneity. That's where I'm connecting with Marshall. See, the antithesis to all this on the other end of the spectrum is what's called blood quantum. And I understand, politically how that needs to be used, by certain original peoples, First Nations or American Indian tribes and so forth, But that is, I respect that. And under my purview, blood quantum is racist. It's only used to put people, to manipulate and even disenfranchise. But basically, there's no self-determination really in playing the blood quantum game. So I put that on one end. Blood lineage, your ancestors, you respect, you recognize. Heritage is something that you feel the partials in you, of all the partials in your beautiful overtone series that are resonating in your fundamental human. Depending on the time, place, and space, or the calling, that could resonate with you. For me, it resonated when I heard Charlie Parker, Bud Powell, these folks. And then heritage leads to blood spirit.
On the final night of Other Minds 28, you'll be performing We Say No to Genocide. Could you tell us about that project?
Yes, of course. So during my time as a critical resistance Oakland organizer, and as an information activist with the Data Center, which was a social research organization that did work for organizations led by folks of color here in Oakland that went down around the time of the housing bubble. My friend Liz Darius, who was working with Malcolm X grassroots movement at the time, or she worked later with Soul, the school of the Organization Unity and Liberation, one of those good titles. She's a badass fool. She showed us this a document called "We Say No to Apartheid" from the American Committee on Africa in 1969, and so it's a culture worker pledge, and it says, whereas we say no to apartheid in all these different forms. And it's signed by like culture workers from that time, like Victor Borge, like Harry B's on there, Mr. B's on there, Ozzie Davis, Eartha Kitt, just all these cast of like amazing, like totally recognizable people who just say no to apartheid, meaning they were pledging not to support it in any way with their art. Anyway, so I tried a few times to reinsert that. So I've been using this "We Say No to Genocide" to reinsert this culture worker pledge into like consciousness, and it's been able to put something I could throw in people's face or like put up there, like to instigate, like, well, let me say, like to help team to organize a reaction. So the last tour I did was that I was showing this, trying to use social media in a way to broadcast this document. How can we say no to it? And then I was able to work with Leah Mona Tawil at the Temisco Art Center, kind of to organize my thoughts. So I was able to create last spring. I led a workshop called "We Say No to Genocide" with an ensemble that Leia pulled together, and they made graphic scores about the genocides going on, and then we videotaped that with thanks to Lenny to Lenny Gonzalez, who's on the board there. And then anyway, I was able to create this conduction method where the audience the audience becomes our conductors. So We Say No to Genocide is a resistance for formations, like an idea into thought, into these expressions of public engagement. So this brings me to the area of performing anti-ethnography or something to that level, which is a discourse on like, what is this work for, or who is this for, right? What are the values that are at place with each step? So idea of We Say No to Genocide, actually, yeah, it's like using the sensational title is a way to help me boost the signal to other projects I'm doing, and to kind of to sort of make the way for this new era of the development of the curriculum and the pedagogy and the music research strategies, investigations.
So he this is his vision. I mean, I just want to support, because I support music research strategies. He's the chef in the kitchen. He wanted to call it We Say No to Genocide. I'm looking forward actually to playing more with him when he comes out and developing it from that point of view. Now, anything he adds beyond our instruments, drums, saxophone, or he wants to add, I'm supporting his vision. So a recent commission I had for a piece with NEA grant and other for the Davenport residents at SUNY New Paltz just last March. I called it Beyond Song, but originally it was called Beyond Words, because we are in a transformational time, beyond transition now, where what's happening is beyond words. But the sonic accompaniment, relation I was thinking of having were the children laughing, children crying. And I mean, I'm talking about children from the source areas of where genocide is occurring, where we can get those sounds of children laughing, children crying, children's voices. That's at the crux of it for me. When we say no to genocide, we're talking about our children, our grandchildren. We're talking about those who are coming after us or not. That's the issue. So we need to really surrender to giving it all up for those who are younger than us, who are coming up after us.
Is the title referring to, specific events? When I hear We Say No to Genocide in 2024, it makes me think of Palestine because that's what's in the news, or is it more generally?
Well, that's the what do you call it? The locus or the focus? That's the point. Palestine, Palestinian children, and liberation and self-determination for their people. And then, of course, concentrically on out to indigenous peoples who are under resistance in their own homeland, who are trying to defend their languages and their ways and their own selves from some government knee that's on their neck. I've been spending the past few years going to Pine Ridge Reservation, a commitment there, learning from understanding indigenous heart and ways from the Lakota people there, specifically with David Swallow Jr., who is a Sundance chief and spiritual leader of his people. And it's always a great honor because of what I learn and what partials begin to resonate, so that we can connect to other peoples under resistance. And so this is Palestine. This is for Palestine. Yeah, for Palestinians, and for this government and any others get their knee off the neck of the people so the children can breathe. Especially because we here in the United States this is the engine that's fueling that genocide, right? We know this. It's so it's a government. It's not people, but however way we create these nation states that fuel genocide. Since we're living in the United States and we're playing here in the United States, Marshall and I feel like I would have thought of more poetic titles with code, but that's just straight up, right? So that's Marshall's style. So, I support it, 100% now. At first I was like, my style is a little more metaphoric, but there's no more time for that.
Yeah. So I really hope that there's like more spaces for critical investigation, in what I'm trying to call, in creative music protest, like the culture. And it's amazing to see that so many people are just really attending to these moments. It's very vocal in media. So I think hoping that I can use this opportunity to support some other work that I'm doing in town. And so on August 30th and 31st, I'm doing a We Say No to Genocide project that's called Turn Everything into Anti-Genocide Now. And so that's a tactical media making project. But I'm hoping that I can use this opportunity to help support this vigil project. So it's like 18 hours of me playing the drums. And then the audience is invited, the people are invited to come into the Prelinger Library in the Soma, and then to pick an item out of the stacks, an image, and then turn it into an anti-genocide sign. And then they're going to scan it into the scanner, and then they're going to type, what the object is, and write, my little like Google form, just a few things as this community archive. So that, and then they're going to show me the object, and then I'm going to interpret it on the drums, in this kind of steady flow. So that's something I'm promoting. That's August 30th and 31st. And then I'm going to try, and then I'm going to try and tour this project. So hopefully through next spring, I could actually really build this investigation where spreading the notion and giving people a way to interact with experimental music and also be a part of a anti-genocide score, a graphic score.
You can hear Marshall Trammell and Hafez Modirzadeh's performance at Other Minds Festival 28 on September 28th, 2024 at the Brava Theater in San Francisco. Thank you, Marshall and Hafez, for talking with me today, and thanks everyone for listening. This has been an episode of the Other Minds podcast, brought to you by Other Minds. Our 28th festival is September 25th to 28th, 2024 at the Brava Theater in San Francisco. Join us again next week.